All right, what's going on, everybody? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about, can you have a full-time job and still invest in real estate? And I would say absolutely, you can. And not only that, but you should have a full-time job. If you're looking to become a full-time real estate investor, I would actually recommend that you have a full-time job and then do real estate investing on the side before you gain some consistency to the point where, eventually you could quit your job if you wanted to. So there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, just like any business when you're getting started, it's going to be hard to be consistent and do consistent deals when you're first getting started. Now, some people, they might start doing 2 or 3 deals per month. But other people, it might take them a little while to get started. So from a pure cash flow perspective, you might save up some money, but if you're not making consistent income like you would from a normal job, that money can dry up pretty quickly. Ask me how I know. So I would definitely recommend having a full-time job, ideally a full-time job in the real estate industry so you can gain even more experience before you even think about quitting your job. The next thing I would keep in mind is when you're getting started as a real estate investor, sometimes you can do extremely well in like your first couple of deals. And it might even just be dumb luck. If you're doing marketing, sometimes you can just, I know some investors that have made like $100,000 on their first couple of deals, which is definitely doable, but it's, I'd say I'd probably consider that pretty rare in the real estate industry. So you want to be able to have done at least a minimum of 3 deals, but ideally more like 5 or 6 deals before you think about quitting your full-time job. And the reason for that is, some deals might be amazing, other deals might take a little bit longer, and you might not make as much. So you want to kind of have like, a wide spectrum of deals under your belt before you decide to quit your job, because sometimes you get cocky too after maybe you do 2 or 3 good deals, but then your 4th deal, because you've done so well in those first couple, you think, oh, I'm going to hit another home run, and then that deal doesn't go so well. So you really want to see a wide spectrum of deals before you think about quitting your job. Another great reason to invest in real estate on the side while you have a full-time job is to build up assets. So by that, I mean, you want to build up, you can even buy rental properties. It's going to be significantly easier to purchase rental properties if you have a full-time job rather than if you're just self-employed, doing the whole full-time real estate investor thing. So that's one reason. You could buy 2, 3, 4, 5 rental properties with your full-time job income before you take the leap to being a full-time real estate investor. And then in that case, you'd have cash flow coming in that would kind of help to stabilize some of the months when you're first getting started. And not only that, but you also want to extend your credit lines and potentially get new credit lines as much as possible when you have the security of a job. So myself personally, I have over $100,000 in credit, and I'm trying to get over $1 million in personal credit and possibly business credit as well. And when you have a job, that's going to be like 10 times easier because they just look at the income, they might look at your taxes, and they'll give you sometimes a pretty quick approval. So you should have, I'm talking about credit lines with the bank. Sometimes you can just get a personal credit line with your bank and you can apply for $50,000. Now they might not give you $50,000 and they might say, hey, what are you spending that for? And you say, hey, I might be making some large purchases soon. You don't really need to get too specific. I don't want you to like lie or anything like that. But generally speaking, if you have good credit and a steady job, you can ask for a personal line of credit, which is essentially like cash, and it'll just be in your account and you can use it whenever you need to. And you should do the same with credit cards. You should have like 3 or 4 credit cards and try to extend the credit lines on those as much as possible. Most people are not even aware that you could probably just call your credit card company today and ask if you've been paying on time and you have a steady job. You probably ask them to double your credit limit, and that could give you a lot more financial security when it does come time to quit your job. Because what will happen is when you're self-employed, especially when you're getting started, you're gonna have like amazing months where you're like, I'm a genius, I'm gonna be a millionaire next month. And then you have months where you're like, crap, I need to get a new job, I need to get a subsidized apartment, I need to make some serious life changes. So having all that built-in credit lines that you can rely on, if you need to. I'm not saying get a credit line just to go buy a boat, which theoretically you could, but use those credit lines as security, or potentially, if a buying opportunity comes around, sometimes you might, maybe there's $100,000, you need to bring $100,000 to the table, and you might be able to finance that in creative ways with credit, your credit line, and savings for that matter. Okay, the next reason why I recommend investing in real estate part-time while you have a full-time job is you can get good at outsourcing. So being a real estate investor, being a full-time real estate investor, you actually don't spend as much time as you might think. A lot of my business is outsourced. So you should outsource these 3 things when you're getting started as a real estate investor. Number 1, your leads. So some investors purchase leads. You can purchase like different motivated seller lists. You can also pay a researcher. I have a virtual assistant that I've trained to basically pull different motivated seller lists for me. So you want to have somebody get the list for you, the list of motivated sellers, the list of people that you're going to be marketing to. And that's just for my business. Some people have other ways of getting deals. The way I get deals is I basically have a long list of people and I send them a lot of direct mail. And now there's other ways of getting deals. You can do a ton of networking. You can just search the MLS. But in my experience, I think direct mail is definitely the best way to go. So you would outsource getting the list. And I have different videos on how I get lists and different things like that. And if you have questions about getting lists, just drop them in the comments and I'll respond. But the next thing you should outsource is having somebody answer the phone. So you should have a business phone line with your business. You don't want to just put your cell phone on different marketing pieces and things like that. It doesn't look very professional. And if you're working a full-time job, you're not going to be able to just answer every single phone call. So there's countless services where you can have like phone.com to get a business phone number. And then I use a call service called Dedicated Office Systems. So they just basically screen all my calls and send me leads essentially. And they notify me via text message as well as email. And it just says, just has the lead info sheet, which basically has the property address, the name of the seller, how soon they're looking to sell, the address, and the amount they're looking for. So I know pretty much within like 30 seconds whether it's a good deal or not, because they'll say, look, I want to sell fast, the house needs a lot of work, and I'm looking to sell it for $200,000, which might be an amazing deal. So you should outsource the calls as well. So Dedicated Office Systems is good. There's Pat Live, PAT Live. There's also Answer First. And then there's also, you can hire a virtual assistant. There's plenty of other services, but those are really good for real estate investors. And then the third thing you should outsource is your direct mail. So I do a lot of direct mail. If you're doing cold calling, you can do that. If you're doing networking, that's obviously more in person. Or if you're searching the MLS, maybe you can just pay someone to like search the MLS for specific types of properties like TLC, handyman special, investor special, things like that. And then maybe they could send it to you, every single day. But for outsourcing my direct mail, I use a service called clicktomail.com where the person sends me my list that I've already outsourced. I basically upload that list to Click-to-Mail and it sends out postcards for me. And I basically just do that once a week and I send out a lot of postcards and I get about a 1% response rate. But out of that 1% response rate, you're going to get some very motivated sellers, especially if you get 10 phone calls. If you can just make your phone ring 10 times in a month, you're going to get like 2 or 3 pretty motivated off-market sellers. So that's also going to help you once you go full-time. You're going to have a good idea of like building a team and things like that, because once you go full time, you're going to want to have like a steady source of leads coming in, a steady source of deals that you can evaluate. So you can practice, with that, with outsourcing those 3 things. And then lastly, before you become a full-time real estate investor, it's good to have a job, okay, in terms of the cash flow. But you can also say, look, a year from now, I'm going to be a full-time real estate investor and I'm still going to have the job, I'm still going to have the cash flow coming in. But maybe within that year, you say, look, I'm going to network. I'm going to meet 100 different people in the real estate industry. You could say, I'm going to try 3 different strategies for finding deals. Maybe one would be direct mail. Maybe one would be cold calling. Maybe you set up a YouTube channel. But you should try 3 different marketing strategies during the time, just so you can test and tweak and see what works. Because once you go full time, you're pretty much going full time. It's kind of hard to go back to working a full time job. So you need to be sure that your marketing strategy is scalable and that it works for you and that you can get predictable results. And that's what I like about direct mail. It's very predictable. So I know if I send out, let's say 500 letters, I pretty much know how many phone calls I'm going to get. If I send out 1,000, it's going to pretty much be the same percentage. Obviously if I send out 100,000, there might be some, eventually it's not going to have the same percentage. But for generally speaking, you can predict how many leads you're going to get. So use your full-time job as security. Maybe you start buying some rental properties. Maybe you start flipping. Maybe do at least 5 deals before you really jump in. And use that time to network as much as possible. Go to RIAs, meetup groups, anything like that. Try to meet at least 100 different people in the industry. And then try different marketing strategies while you're working a full-time job. So maybe you just wake up an hour earlier and you send out some direct mail. Maybe you wake up an hour earlier, you make a YouTube video. You do different networking, you reach out to different people, but you really want to have tested some marketing strategies before you jump full-time into the business. So there you have it. Hope I answered your question on can you have a job, a full-time job, and also invest in real estate. And I would highly recommend that you do get a full-time job before you think about becoming a full-time real estate investor. Especially, if you can get a job in real estate, it's even better because there's going to be a lot of things that will carry over to your own business. So thanks for watching. Please like, please share, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. All right, bye.